when you lose a game of this magnitude, people get emotional. You know, even pundits, you know, supporters. And it probably is a good time for the manager to be measured. 4 defeats in a row. He's explained the game really well. If Liverpool put the majority of the chances where, they'd probably win the game. But the way the Premier League is style-wise this season, for everybody, set pieces is a big part of the game. Everybody's taking long throws this season. You know, set pieces galore. We look at Arsenal, the success they've had as well. And Liverpool just can't seem to cope at the moment. So we keep talking about new signings and integrating them in terms of actually the football Liverpool are playing. But the new signings that Liverpool have brought in, has it affected them set piece-wise as well? You know, the fullbacks are quite small. You know, there's no sort of great, you know, physical presence in there. Even if you play a Verts in midfield and McAllister as well, you've got to think set piece-wise as well. Is the team big enough? And maybe this is hurting Liverpool now, not just in terms of actually, you know, playing the football and getting players on the ball, but it looks like they're not coping at all well with set pieces. They can see it last minute at Crystal Palace from a long throw as well. Another corner at Crystal Palace as well. So yeah, they're struggling, I think, with the style of the whole Premier League right now.
You mentioned the fact that it's a time for Arne Slot to be measured after 4 defeats in a row. But if you look at performances across the whole season, you were saying in the first game of the season against Bournemouth that there were worrying signs defensively for Liverpool from open play. Have they gone any way to fixing those? Do they still look as vulnerable in open play as you thought they were on that first day?
Oh, yeah, it hasn't changed. And I think a few weeks ago, I looked about Liverpool maybe going back to having Szoboszlai in the midfield and maybe Verts coming out the team because he's more of an offensive number 10 than Szoboszlai. But Szoboszlai's played in that position in the last 2 games, you know, away at Chelsea, here against Manchester United today. And Liverpool are still conceding goals and conceding big chances. You know, you think of the chance Fernandes had in that first half as well. Manchester United should be 2-0 up in that situation. So there's, as we said before the game, I don't think it's one glaring problem. There's lots of things. New signings, not up to speed. But some of Liverpool's great players last season are playing nowhere near the level that they are and, you know, just making sort of errors. And you talk about Konate. He was brilliant today. I thought Konate had a great game. But then Van Dijk's nowhere near himself. I mean, he has a really poor game as well. So it's not quite happening for Liverpool right now. And I think, I've just mentioned on the podcast, actually, I think if
where's that available to download? All your usual podcast places.
Exactly. But I think when the champions or a team, if you think of last season, on such a long run undefeated from the Nottingham Forest game, I think maybe to the Fulham game later in the season, almost feel invincible. And then this season, as soon as someone beats them, this run goes on of 4 games. I remember Manchester City last season had that run where you couldn't believe this was Manchester City. You feel a little bit like that with Liverpool. And I go back to a game I played in here 25 years ago or something, where the invincible team with Arsenal, the following season, once they'd lost 1 game, everyone thought, oh, maybe you can beat them. And they actually went on and get a run of sort of losing 4 or 5 games. So it's just one of those things that the rut that they're in right now, and they just, as the manager said, you know, they've got to get out of it quick. But it's probably, we're not going to see the best of Liverpool, I would say, till the second half of the season.
But that's why that's why I think a draw today, I know we praise them for gambling and winning, getting late goals. But on the back of 3 defeats, you're home to United and it's 1-1. Don't shy away from taking a point as well. I think just to stop the rot. I know 3 games for Liverpool was a lot. But there's a bit of arrogance in that, which is nothing wrong with that. When you're champions, you think there's a bit of a swagger. But also smell the game and go, there's danger here. That's why there's not no taking a point either. It's not the end of the world.
They've always been title challengers. They've always had teams coming in here, maybe sitting back against them. But to Jamie's point, do you think that they can scent blood a bit more this season? They feel that it's possible to get something? Yeah,
and I think a lot of clubs, a lot of teams will look at what Manchester United did today. They never once played out from the back from a goal kick. You see much lesser teams who aren't comfortable on the ball trying to do that, inviting pressure, losing a goal. I think they had a really good game plan. I think that they showed that against Liverpool today. In terms of, you know, trying to maybe, you know, a point isn't the worst result in the world. It wouldn't have been. If you look at what Arsenal did when they got that point against Manchester City, we were all talking about it after that, how they were celebrating, how happy they were. But then they got on a great run after that. They got a Newcastle win and we all go, yeah, actually, at the time it didn't feel like a good point, but how good does it feel now? So Liverpool have just got to find some rhythm again. And everyone's going to be asking questions about his decisions, the players that are coming. That's inevitable. The next week or so, people are talking about, you know, how's he going to fit Verts in the team? How's he going to fit Isak, Ekitike into the team? What does he do about the right-back situation? How's the left-back looking? There's going to be lots of question marks, but you just got to be a little bit patient. He's very measured, the manager. He doesn't get too involved, doesn't get too high when they do well, doesn't get too low when they don't. And I think it might need a bit of that for now, because it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. It's going to be a difficult time because they've got some tough games. We're writing it down earlier on. They've got Brentford away, Villa at home, and then the Manchester City away. So they're games that you're looking at thinking they're not going to be easy. They're going to be challenged next week.
Champions League games, Carabao Cup game against Crystal Palace, and amongst all of that.
Well, we talk about set pieces. Jamie's mentioned it, how difficult they are now, and how big. You've got the ultimate test next week at Brentford away. So they're the challenges that they've got to have. So they've got to make sure they deal with them.
And with all the players they brought in, I'm just trying to imagine how the manager and the staff at the training ground they're looking at. They have a lot of options, really, and sometimes that can be a problem. Also, when you've got brilliant options on the bench, you see him chopping and changing, and he is offensive, and I give him a thumbs up for gambling. But again, there's certain games, and you have it, the old sayings in football, if you can't win it, don't lose it. They've got to get back to that mindset of not giving up daft goals like they have done. That's the point he made at the end.
When you sort of won the title, and you're obviously lucky to win it loads of times, did you then, the second year, when you have to do it again, is it like is it hard to get yourself going?
Yeah, there's obviously a different challenge, and obviously people look at you, but then you've obviously got a bit of a confidence about you that we've done it and we can hopefully do it again. And you've got that winning culture and that vibe going on. And again, people always thought about the team I was involved in going, you always felt you'd go to the very end. And you always felt if anyone was going to win it was United and they'd be gambling. But there was plenty of games where we'd be trying to win again, but also we'd be looking going, everyone thinks we're going to go for it here, but we'll take a draw. There's certain games, like I think you always have to smell it in the air. I think Liverpool should have smelled that today. And I know it's hard when you're at home and the fans are pushing you, it's on the television, everyone's building the game up. But when it's 1-1 and you've lost 3 in a row, there's nothing wrong with just bringing it back to basics and going, listen, lads, we'd love to win it. We've got enough attacking players on the pitch. But defensively, you've got experienced 2 centre-halves going, yeah, listen, we've got 1 or 2 players who can try and win it. But make sure we don't lose it.
If we talk about Isak and Wirtz, it's only 8 starts between the two of them. So we're not dealing with this on the basis of a lot of evidence. But is the evidence there that they are going to click, that they are going to start producing?
I think the evidence is definitely there with Isak because he's been in the Premier League before. He was fantastic for Newcastle. He's got to score that chance when he's
and
going
Slot
through.
Says now his pre-season's over. He's now ready to be judged.
Oh, listen, Listen, I said a few weeks ago, maybe for Florian Wirtz, he's found it tough to get up to the speed of the Premier. It's not just about the goals and assists. Obviously, we know he hasn't got one yet, but it can be in general play as well. And we know there's a different physicality in the Premier League to the Bundesliga. And I heard Jamie say before the game, and plenty of people doing the right to say, oh, it's too early to judge. And of course, as you've just said, 7 or 8 games. But I mean, is there a certain game where it's okay? What do we have to get to? 15, 20? What I'm saying is, it's like, you've got to... I'm not expecting to see the Bayer Leverkusen Florian Wirtz in the first 7 games, but I'm expecting to see him
improve.
Just little glimpses where you think, okay, he can get there. We haven't seen much at all, really. And with Isak, as I said, he's got to score that chance. That's not about being at a new club. That's just a poor finish. He's not thinking of that when he's going through. You've just got to score that. But no, listen, I think it's interesting when. And we've all said this in as a pundit, where we talk about how long do you give foreign players when they come to the league. Some people say you don't write the first year off, but the second year they'll improve and get better. But if I'm being totally honest, in my experience of players who've come to the club when I was a player, if I think of the great foreign signings, and the first one that comes to me, I'll think Sami Hyypiä, Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Luis Suarez, Didi Hamann coming in. They all hit the ground running. I can't think of many who had a really average, poor... I'm not talking 7 games, by the way. If we're talking getting to Christmas, January, February, when you haven't seen much, you're a little bit like, ooh, because for me, history doesn't tell me that foreign signings coming into England take a year. People always say Thierry Henry. It's nonsense. Thierry Henry scored 25 goals in his first season for Arsenal.
He didn't score for his first 8, though.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is,
so
it wasn't a year.
So you do need to be patient then. If he didn't score for his first 8, then...
I know, but I'm just saying 7 or 8 games is too early. But what I'm saying is, once we start getting to January, February, March, it's a bit like, when is the time when we can start saying, hang on, maybe this was a mistake? Yes, you can talk about getting used to up to speed, and we're at that stage now, 7 or 8 games. But in my experience with players, especially at Liverpool, players who are great, foreign signings for the club, more often than not, they hit the ground running. I would say 99% of them.
So I think that's there are others that don't. Gravenberch took a while. There are others that maybe do take a little bit more time. And the thing is as well, this pre-season, I think for Liverpool was probably the most difficult they've ever had to go through, for obviously what happened with a tragedy and everything like that. So everything's been disrupted and been so tough for the players. So what that has done to a lot of the players, and that disruption must have been so tough for everybody. They've lost one of their, not just a teammate, also a brother to a lot of them. So it's been really difficult. Now, players coming in, like Florian Wirtz, there's been a few moments. If he has the assist against Chelsea and Salah scores for him, we'll talk about, wow, what an assist. He's off, he's running. Now, I'm not sure, excuse me, if he's going to be that person that's going to be always sliding balls through. He might be at times like a little bit like, I would say, a Luka Modric. Now, Luka Modric, you judged him purely on his goals and assists. You maybe think he wouldn't be the player that we will talk about, but he would be the player that would make the pass and makes the pass. Now, that might be Florian Wirtz. Today, when he come on, he showed me a lot of qualities, and I thought, yeah, he was willing to get on the ball. It wasn't easy for him. I think we've got a real player there, but it's going to take time. The intensity of this league, especially for someone like him, it's so robust, and he might just be finding that a bit more difficult than what we all expected. He might have to go on a little bit of a strength and conditioning situation for a few months and get him even stronger. But I've got no doubt, because I've seen players like that in the Premier League and I've seen him in Germany, he will be a success here. But again, we have to be a little bit patient. Isak, I'm not worried about, as Jamie says. He's played in this league for the last few years. He's going to be comfortable. But there isn't that pressure when you play for Liverpool.
It sort of brings me back to something you said before the game, Jamie, which is that when Mo Salah isn't playing well, Liverpool are maybe having to have someone else as their star player. However, is that an Isak? Is that a Florian Wirtz? Is it someone else? They're now looking for a different pivotal player in that starting lineup. Who do you think that the future player that Liverpool build their team around is?
Well, it has to be Isak and Wirtz, because they've spent the money on them, and their age profile compared to Mo Salah. And I do think watching Mo Salah this season, and I absolutely love him. But if we know he's good, there's a tactical setup with Mo Salah in that he doesn't help Liverpool's right back. But that's I'm not criticising him for being lazy, not getting back. We lauded Arne Slot for allowing Salah that role last season, and he probably hasn't got the legs to get up and down like a conventional wide player. But if you're not getting nothing going the other way, you're obviously losing something that way, but you're not gaining it going the other way. And watching Mo Salah today, he never got found out sort of defensively because he doesn't track back today. But he was off with the ball. He lost the ball a lot through the game, and that can happen with him even in his prime. But what I would say with Mo Salah right now is I think we're at the stage where I don't think Mo Salah should be like a Virgil van Dijk, where it's like first name on the team sheet. So Liverpool have got 2 away games, one in the Champions League in Frankfurt, and then they go to Brentford. I don't think Mo Salah should start both of those games. He should always be starting at Anfield, because Liverpool are going to be on top, be around the edge of the box, and more often than not, he scores in those situations today. But I do think with away games and helping your right fullback as well, I don't think Mo Salah should be starting every game right now, certainly away from home, with the form that he's in.